Hey traders, this is John Howell here from tradingandinvesting4u.com, and in this video I'm going to do something different. I just recently had an email, and one of my subscribers, one of my kind subscribers, his name is Chris, and I apologize, Chris, if I've pronounced your last name wrong here, but Chris Rahil. I'm doing this video for you, my man, because you asked me to help you out, and so I'm doing that for you. So I'm very, very glad to help you out here as well, okay? So what we're looking at here now is a particular stock, not the index. It's actually Ford Motor Co. And what we're looking at here is we're simply looking at a daily chart, okay? Looking at a daily chart. Now, the very first thing I like to do with all my stocks is to get a bigger perspective of what the market is doing. Okay, a bigger perspective of what the market is doing. And so what I do is I like to look at the weekly chart. So let's bring us down to here. We can look at all this. We'll look at a weekly chart now. So I'm going to bring up a weekly chart here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze the chart up as much as I can. And what you're doing here is we're looking back over all this time frame here on this Ford Motor. And we're just seeing where it is right now in conjunction of its highs and its lows. So we can see up here that this is the highs up here. And we can't see that. Yeah, can we? No. So we can see this is the highs up here. There we go. That's the highs up there. This is the lows down there, and this is sort of the midpoint through here. Okay, and so that's all you're looking at. The reason why I'm looking at that is just to get a good visual view of where we're at. Are we at the highs? Are we at the lows? Are we at the mediums? Where are we at? So since being at the mediums, that's actually a pretty good sign. Okay. So next thing I'd want to do is I'd want to get a good view of where the overall market is going and what's doing here. So what I'd like to do is do a Fibonacci as well, just to get a good view. So click on Fibonacci and go from the very low to the very high here. And we can see something interesting here, right? We can see that this whole 50% line here has been good support. You can see pretty good decent support through there, resistance through there, good support through there, really good support through here. So we're actually really holding at this whole level here. This whole 50% line is a massive, massive support level. And you can see it's really struggling to get through. So that's actually a very, very good sign here. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're just drawing parameters of what's happening in the market. Let me take everything off the screen. And now I've got a good view of where the market's at in some parameters, so to speak. I can see what's happening with this market. So now I'm going to zoom this chart in just a bit closer. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw this from here to here. And I'm just going to draw some trend lines here, okay? So I'm going to draw from here and draw it up through here, okay? And you can see how what's happened here. The market's bounced off this level here, bounced off this level here, and market broke back down and created like a bit of what we call this like a bit of a bear flag. Market ran down and then ran up through here, okay? And you can see there's a bit of a bear flag, and then the market started to break back down through there. So take everything off the screen now, and now let's zoom in very, very close to the price action right now. Okay. So we can see that the market broke up and now broke back down. We can now see that the overall market has found really good support here. Okay, really good support at this 50% line through here. And what we're doing now is we're just saying, okay, this actually looks really good, like for a support level. But let's have a look at let's have a look at the strength, and let's have a look at the peaks and troughs. So let's do that right now. We have a peak up here, a lower peak, a lower trough. So peak, lower trough, lower peak, lower trough, lower peak, lower trough, lower peak. Okay, so we still are making lower troughs and lower peak. So as we can see that overall we are on a big, massive downward movement here. Okay, no doubt about that. We're on a big, massive downward movement here. So the overall sellers do have this. But what I do see is there's something actually coming in here. And what I'm talking about here is this. Let me just make a trend line here. Is if I draw from the trend line from here and I draw it down through there, look at this here. Okay, we can see that we have this sort of starter point up through here, resistance all through here, resistance all through here. And you can see what's happened here, right? The markets came down through here, it ran down, gave you a low through here, it's ran back up, it's busted above this resistance line, it's now come back down, and now it's now formed a bit of support through there. Can you see that? That is very, very bullish. Especially, remember, we're looking at a weekly chart here. This is weekly bars here. Okay, very, very strong. Now the weekly bars Okay, with the weekly bars, it's showing a lot of strength there. So what I'd like to do now is, again, this is me doing my analysis here. I'm looking at this stock for Chris here. What I want to do now is I want to move over to the daily chart, okay? So let's look at the daily chart. So now we understand some parameters. So let's actually draw this in. Let's actually draw from weekly chart, draw it down from here to here, because that's our major weekly trend line, right? Remember, we've always got to keep this trend line here intact, because we are at a very good support level through here. Okay, we know we're at a really good weekly long-term support level here. We know that, and we also know we've broken out of this and come back down through here. Now we're finding a bit of support, so that's also very, very strong. So let's move over to the daily chart now, and let's hone on this a bit more. So now what we're doing, we're looking at the daily chart, and we're looking at seeing what's happening here moving forward. Okay, so we can squeeze this chart as much as we can. And we just want to make sure that we get this right on tact. What I'm doing is I'm just getting this to touch as many times as possible. And that looks like it there. What we can see here, we have this high up here, resistance through here, resistance through here, resistance through here. And now look what's happened. It's broke up and it's come back down. And now look at this, that point through there. That point there would have been the buying point for me. Okay, so again, just based on general advice in this video, and again, anything I do say in this video is obviously based on general advice only. This is not for your personal circumstances. I'm not saying go buy this stock, okay? But what I was saying, this point down here, this level through here now, that was a good sign to buy. Now, what would give me a good indication of buying is this. Market ran up, busted above this resistance line, and now it's ran down. But notice we're now starting to create remember we had a lower trough, a lower trough, a lower trough. Remember that on the weekly chart? Lower trough equals what? Downward movement. But now we're starting to create a higher trough, right? Let me take everything off the screen now, and let me show you what else was showing me that this could be a good buy signal through here. Is the indicators. Let's look at the volume first. Volume first was not doing much there, okay? But let's have a look at my RSI. RSI is a very good indicator that determines strength. You can see the RSI at this particular time. If I just move this over here now, and we show you what's happening here, there we go. Okay, so we can see, whoops. Okay, so we can see at this point, this particular time, you can see the RSI is really at that bottom, really at that 20 bottom. And you can see, based on this analysis here, you can see the RSI only gets down to around about that point there before reversing, right? You can see here, let me just draw this here. You can see when the RSI got down the bottom here, what happened to the stock? That was the bottom there, okay? Had at least a bit of reverse. This was the bottom here again, and that was the bottom there, okay? We looked at the bottom here, no reverse there, but eventually it started to turn around, and then we had the turnaround through there, okay? Had a bit of a bottom through there, and we had a bit of a turnaround through there, okay? So the whole point here is that we do get a bit of reversing when the market's down here, but it's important to look at the price action first. Look at the weekly chart, look at the overall movement, knowing that we're at really good support level through here, okay? This level here is a really, really good support level. So we know that, okay? We absolutely know that. So that's a really good sign. Plus, one of my other good indicators I like to use is called let me see if I can get this up properly. It's called the stochastic, okay? Look at the stochastic. Look how far we've been spending time down through here. And then what happened is when indicators and price action come together, that's what gives a good, powerful movement. Look at this, all this bottom through here. Look at the stochastic right down the bottom here. And then that was the point through there. So what happened here is this. The market hit resistance here, hit resistance, came off, hit resistance, came off, hit resistance, came off. We came up, boom, and we ran down. And as we ran down, stochastics was saying, look at this, look at this. And as we started to bounce, that would be a good buying opportunity there, okay? For a bit more upside. Now, how long this is going to go up, I am not too quite sure. That's obviously a hard question to say. But overall, right now, it looks pretty strong. If we do start this whole level here, as we can see, as remember, right? This whole level here, this whole 50% level through here, was indeed a very, very good, strong support level on the weekly chart. So this looks like a pretty good this looks like a pretty good buy signal here overall. And look for an upside, and I would say that if it starts breaking below this trend line and breaking below this level through here, so about 980, 960, somewhere about there, 970, possibly down to 910, that would be an exit for me straight away if we start breaking below that, because it's now breaking below and more downside would likely come. But if we stay back up, if we stay above this trend line, then more upside should come in place. Okay. All right then, Chris. I hope that helps you out, my man. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, traders. And I hope traders that you've learned a lot from this as well. Again, I'm not saying here go out and buy this stock. I'm saying this is just my general review of what I see in this particular stock. Make sure you understand the risks, the rewards, and analysis, and all that sort of stuff before you invest in this particular stock. Okay. So, hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you next week with some more updates. And if anyone else has any other stock you want me to look out for you, let me know, and I'll do a good in-depth overview like I have done this with Chris. So, thanks very much, Chris, for this, and I'm glad to help you out here.